Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be talking about U.S. oil policy.
Yeah.
Specifically under President Trump's second term.
Okay.
And we're going to be looking at this from the perspective of those of you listening outside the U.S.
Interesting.
to help you understand the core strategies at play, the
Yeah.
objectives and the economic factors driving this whole thing.
Okay.
We're going to really try to cut through the noise
Okay.
and
Right.
really understand what's going on here and how it might impact the energy landscape globally.
So essentially, the central question for you is, what is the Trump administration's energy plan right now?
Right?
And how might it affect energy dynamics, in your neck of the woods?
Exactly.
So one thing we know is the stated primary goal is lower gas prices for Americans. We're diving into analysis of this agenda and how it interacts with economic realities and global markets.
All right, so let's get into it.
Okay.
A key element of President Trump's energy strategy is this drive to increase oil and gas production. And, it's often summed up as drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, that's a familiar one.
It means pushing for more drilling on federal lands, expanding offshore areas, particularly in Alaska,
Right.
with things like the Willow Project and this proposed gas pipeline.
Yeah.
And the fundamental idea is that increased supply should bring down gasoline prices.
That's the basic idea.
So it's the
Yeah, the economic thinking behind this is that oil is so crucial
right.
for so much of the economy. We're talking transportation manufacturing.
Yeah.
So energy costs directly affect the cost of living
Right.
and inflation, of course.
Right.
And we found this really interesting statistic. About 52%
Wow.
of the price you pay for gasoline is tied directly to the cost of crude oil.
Really?
So the logic is simple. Lower crude oil costs, lower prices across the board.
But here's where it gets interesting, right? For everyone listening,
Yeah.
including you folks outside the U.S.,
Right.
simply pumping more oil doesn't automatically translate to lower prices.
Exactly. There's a lot more at play there.
As our sources highlight, energy prices are set by global markets,
Right.
not solely by one government's policies.
Yeah, it's a global commodity.
And even though the U.S. is a major producer, it still imports oil.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's really fascinating, too, is that in 2024, crude oil prices were hovering around $64 to $70 a barrel.
Yeah.
Now, that's actually the break-even point for many U.S. producers. So even with fewer regulations,
Right.
they're often hesitant
Okay.
to drastically increase drilling
Why is that?
because of investor pressure. The
Ow.
profitability, right.
Yeah.
More barrels don't always equal more profit in this context.
Makes sense.
So that inherently limits how much domestic policy can unilaterally lower prices.
Right. Right.
It's not that straightforward.
Okay. And we also need to consider where all this energy is going. The U.S. is exporting more and more.
Exactly.
Liquefied natural gas.
Mm-hmm. LNG.
LNG. So that's natural gas that's cooled down
Right.
to make it easier to ship overseas.
Exactly. Easier to transport.
And this can boost
Yeah.
U.S. revenue
Right.
and geopolitical influence, of course.
Exactly. There are a lot of benefits there.
But let's connect this to the bigger picture for our listeners abroad.
Yeah, that's key.
There is a potential trade-off here,
Absolutely.
as one source put it. The more we export natural gas, the more we import high prices.
Yeah, and that's domestically. Right.
Domestically.
Yeah.
So policies that are aimed at boosting one sector
Mm-hmm.
for international benefit
Yeah.
could potentially actually increase energy costs within the U.S.
That's right. It's a balancing act.
Another central aspect we need to touch on is the administration's view on regulation.
Okay.
They argue that environmental regulations,
Yeah.
like a National Environmental Policy Act,
Right.
or NEPA, which requires these environmental impact assessments, slow down important energy projects.
And they would say unnecessarily.
Right. And streamlining these approvals is seen as a way to boost investment and create jobs.
Yeah. More jobs, more economic activity.
But this raises a very critical point.
It does.
While speeding up approvals might offer short-term economic gains,
Uh-huh.
Overlooking thorough environmental reviews could lead to significant long-term environmental and legal risks,
Absolutely.
which have their own economic consequences down the line.
Exactly. Down the road, you might face even greater costs.
So you can see the core challenge here.
Yeah.
U.S. oil policy under President Trump is trying to balance making energy cheaper for Americans
Right.
while ensuring profitability for producers.
It's a tough act to pull off. And for you listening internationally,
Right.
it's important to understand that the
Yeah.
U.S.'s position as both a major oil producer and a significant LNG exporter creates this really complex interplay in the global energy landscape.
It does.
So think about it.
Yeah.
What factors,
Beyond just...
beyond just U.S. domestic policy,
Right.
might ultimately have the biggest impact on energy prices in your part of the world?
It's something to think about because the global energy market is a very interconnected web.
It really is. Yeah.
And that's it for today on The Deep Dive.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.